World S008 World of Boku no Hero. Villain Izuku was betrayed and returned to the past. Asterisk it was all a lie. Theory Part 1. Izuku Midoriya and Tenko Shigaraki had managed to free AFO. The plan went so well that they defeated and humiliated the All Might Peace symbol and his successor Katsuki Bakugo. It was a great feeling to leave them wounded on the ground and with their egos destroyed. There were little things Izuku didn't want to do. One of them was the confrontation with his friend Kathleen Bate. Known as the heroine Star and Stripe, he cast a wistful glance at the sky. Everything was already done and the past could not be changed. Himiko Toga with a big smile speaks to him. Hey Izu, what shall we do now that we have already won? He thought a little and answered. You don't know, honey. The strongest heroes are already defeated. Now all that's left is to conquer Japan and eliminate any hostile resistance. Himiko Toga, still smiling, approaches Izuku and gives him a hug. Hey Izu, I'll be honest with you. I did everything I could to make it work. I forced my heart to love, but I can't anymore. Izuku didn't understand his partner's words. Hey Izu, if you had rescued me when I was little, this would probably be different. Clap. It was the sound of a knife piercing flesh. Izuku opened his eyes and a second later vomited blood. COF. What does this mean? Izuku calmly separated from the embrace and looked at Toga, who had tears in his eyes. I'm sorry, Izu, but I was sent by AFO to make you fall in love so you won't betray us. Then several footsteps were heard and Izuku looked around, seeing several of his companions, and in the middle was his master looking at him with a sadistic smile. AFO proceeded to speak. You may wonder why I betrayed you. It's simple. You already fulfilled your role, and before you become a threat to me I will kill you. Izuku tried to activate his quirk, but he felt nothing. As he could, he dodged an air cannon that devastated the whole place where he was. But his reaction was a little late because he lost his left arm. They won't kill me without killing you first, damn traitors. Izuku looked at his girlfriend, but she averted her gaze with a clear sense of guilt marked on her face. Izuku gritted his teeth in rage and lunged for the fight. Blows, explosions, and small tremors were heard. In the end, Izuku was stained with blood and had lost his other arm as well. AFO approached with confidence. Look at you, rejected by society and now betrayed by your allies. You really are pathetic. He kept approaching and without expecting it, Izuku lunged and bit off a chunk of his neck. AFO, he kicked him so hard that he broke every bone in his chest and a bone went through his heart. COF Kafu. Izuku was starting to see blurry. This is how my pathetic life ends. He saw Toga approaching with a knife. Toga with a sad face speaks to him. Even though I acted all this time, I will treasure the moments I lived with you. He releases more tears and approaches Izuku, and with a slash he cuts his neck and blood starts to fall from him. Izuku, with his last breath of life, spoke to him with great hatred. Fuck you, traitor. Having said that, Izuku died, and Toga couldn't take it anymore and started to cry. Sniff sniff, I'm sorry, Izu. They left me no choice. It was either you or our son. She was touching her belly with tears. I hope in your afterlife you can live in peace, my beloved Izu. Plas. It was the sound of applause from an AFO. Just as I promised you. You will be able to live with your son and no villain will hurt you. Toga opened his eyes when a second later he started to cry because you did it. Second later, Toga fell dead next to Izuku. AFO looked at his hand full of blood as it had pierced Toga's belly. AFO without remorse spoke. Especially your son, may be a danger to my plans. And just as I promised you, you will live with your son, but it will be in the other world. Asterisk a new opportunity. Theory Part 2. Izuku losing consciousness due to blood loss. Could hear the end of Toga. He no longer felt anything for her, but was saddened by the fate of his son. He found himself in a dark abyss. It was as if he was sinking in an ocean from which he could not get out. Izuku in her mind speaks, so this is what it feels like to die. It's quite peaceful. I would have liked to make the world a better place. I'm sorry, mother. I strayed from the path and became a villain. I could have been a hero. A true hero seeking true peace, but I ended up a villain. Izuku let out a few tears. In clear frustration, but he would not give up. He would correct his actions. He would give hope to the world, a world where his mother didn't have to die, a world where people didn't discriminate against the Quirkles. He opened his eyes and began to swim to the surface. He tried to pull himself out of the abyss he was in. He tried with all his might. Dark hands appeared and tried to pull him into the depths, but he did not give up. I will never give up, he cried out in despair. Not even death itself will stop me. He kept climbing with all his strength. He saw a small light. He stretched out his hand to reach for that light. You can, Argrar. With one last shout of determination, he reached for the light. Izuku gave a smile and a boom. A blinding light blinded him. He felt strange. His body felt strange, and he could open his eyes. Tears came to his eyes because in front of him was the kindest person in the world. His beloved mother was there. Mother. He wanted to talk to her, but he realized he couldn't speak. His mother reached out her hand and grabbed me. Ninko with tears speaks to him with all her love. Hello, my baby. She saw how her baby wanted to say something, but only meaningless words came out. Inko let out a light laugh. Calm down, my little one. You will have plenty of time to learn how to talk. Then Inko looks at her son and gives him a smile. It's strange, but I feel you understand me. I want to welcome you, my little Izuku. Inko gave him a kiss on the cheek. It made her son smile. Izuku didn't need to be a genius to realize that he had restarted his life. Izuku gave a yawn and gave his mother a smile and went to sleep. POV years later. Time passed, and to Inko's surprise, her son was a genius. At only 2 years old, he started to say his first words, and at 3 years old, he could walk without any problems. In kindergarten, he was the most outstanding in everything. There was only one thing that worried her, and that was that her son didn't make friends, and the other thing that worried her was that he didn't show signs of his peculiarity. TOC talk, I'm coming, Inko said, and when she opened the door she saw the biggest pride of her. Haizu. Inko gave him a hug while rubbing her cheek with her son's cheek. Izuku thought, her careless mother. This time I won't make you worry, and I will make you proud. Tell me, Izu, have you made any friends? Izuku folded his arms and tilted his head. No, mother, I just need your company to be happy. Inko smiled and couldn't help but hug her son as she twirled him happily from side to side. You're a sweetheart, Izu. Though I know in the future you will meet someone who can be with you and understand you. Izuku cocked his head to the side. How can you be so sure of that? It's because you are special. My son, you may not see it, but I feel you will make a big change in this world, and I know you will find your ideal person. The conversation ended, and they set out for lunch. After a while, Inko took Izuku to the hospital to find out what Izuku's quirk is on the way. They were talking, but Inko found it strange. Her son recommended her not to go to a doctor named Kyudai Garaki. Tell me, Izu, how do you know about that doctor, and why don't you want me to go with him? As far as I know, he is the best doctor in the hospital. Izuku ponders a bit and replies, Mother, you know I'm smart, and I'm telling you because I've done my research and that doctor doesn't. Inspire confidence in me. Izuku has an idea and looks at his mother. Let's go to a clinic. It's not far from here, and I know that the doctor who usually goes to work is trustworthy. In her youth, she was a heroine. Inko nods, and they went to a clinic. Then they met with Recovery Girl and gave Izuku an examination. After a while, a surprised Recovery Girl arrived with a paper in her hand. Recovery Girl spoke nervously. Can you tell me who your father is and what quirk he has? Inko smoothly replied, my late husband's name was Asashi Midoriya. She put on a sad look. He was a hero in America. His quirk is Dragon's Breath. Recovery Girl gave a sigh and replied, this information doesn't have to leave here. Inko nodded in confirmation. Her son's gift is God's vision, the power of perfect vision. Everything you read you will learn. Every fighting style you see you will learn. Any quirk you see can be copied if you wish. Your vision is sharper than an Alcon's, and your reaction time is 10 milliseconds. The description of the quirk surprised his mother, but Izuku was trembling. But he was shaking from sheer excitement. His head was down and he had a big smile. Izuku in her mind, with this, mother will not suffer ridicule because of me. But now I can achieve my goal, and with this I will defeat All Might and AFO. Although only AFO will die. Izuku with his great intelligence convinced his mother not to say anything about his gift to people. Instead, he copied his mother's gift and several telekinetic gifts. People now thought that Izuku got an evolution of his mother's gift. So the years passed. Izuku studied in another institute because he could not stand the presence of Katsuki. There he met future heroes of his original world. He became friends with Mina, Jiro, Yui Kadai. Thanks to his friends, he could see that the world is not bad and if it is worth fighting for a better world. The years continued to pass and now Izuku was 13 years old. But thanks to the quirks copied to increase his strength and his own training, he had a toned body and looked 16 years old. Izuku looked up at the sky and was heading to a fair. Today she would meet her friend. This time he would not be her enemy. Now he would be side by side working for a better world. As in his world, he played clueless and collided with Kathleen and he fell to the ground. Izuku could see a nervous smile from her as she held out her hand for him to pick him up. Everything happened exactly like in his world. He also met Sernai Tai and they shared a liking and admiration for All Might. Of course, Izuku wasn't a fan of him anymore, but sharing this moment with them was special and it was worth pretending that he was still a fan of All Might. Sernai Tai had to leave. In the afternoon, Izuku and Star and Stripe, or also known as Kathleen, spent having fun at the fair and going to all the game booths. It had gotten late and it was time to leave, but Kathleen smiled and spoke to him. Come on, Izuku. I haven't known you long, but I can clearly see that you want to tell me something. Izuku sighs and asks, do you think someone without quirk can be a hero? She puts on her biggest smile and with her fist touching my chest she answers, it doesn't matter if you weren't born with a quirk. As long as you choose the right side, everything will be possible, and I hope one day to see you become a hero. Izuku puts on a sad smile. Thank you. You really are the best. Kathleen gave him a smile and was about to leave, but, and for the respect and affection I have for you, I want to tell you the truth. The truth that I betrayed your trust. But I want to show you the whole picture and for you to be honest with me. Do you think I did the right thing? Asterisk a truth and a new power. Theory Part 3. Kathleen was the woman with the most unwavering heroic spirit, and in the face of adversity she would crack a smile. But now the great heroine Kathleen Bate had tears in her eyes. She saw what her friend suffered, what was done to her, and what happened to her mother, as well as what society and heroes did to Izuku. Izuku removed his hand from Kathleen's head and deactivated his mind-type quirk that transferred his memories. Izuku stopped sharing his memories and lowered his gaze because of all the people he had hurt in his past life. Kathleen was the only one he didn't want to hurt. Kathleen meditated for a while and walked over and gave Izuku a hug. She smiled at him as she stroked his head. Don't worry, Izuku. You did bad things and many of them I don't approve of. Izuku unconsciously hugged Kathleen tighter. Calm down, Izuku. I know you have already learned from your mistakes and this time your path will be the right one. Izuku gave a long sigh. You really are amazing. How can you forgive a villain like me so quickly? Well, in my eyes, you are a very cute villain. That comment made Izuku blush lightly. They both looked at each other and laughed together. They spent another while talking and shared phone contact. Kathleen was already leaving, but Izuku calls out her name and she turns to look at him. Izuku raises his voice. If I become the best in O, I want you to be my girlfriend. Kathleen was quiet for a while and then, she laughed very funny and wiped away a tear. You're a little bold, but I'll take your word for it. If you prove to be the most worthy, then I'll grant your request. Izuku, a bit nervously, asks, by the way, may I copy your gift? She nodded. Then she turned around and left the place with her hand raised in farewell. Izuku smiled. Wow, she really is unique. No one would allow her to copy her gift, let alone one of such power. She vows to use her gift to help the less fortunate. Izuku looked at his hand and spoke to himself. New order power to grant a gift. Second order protection against gifts that nullify gifts and gifts that can obtain my gifts as well as mind control gifts. Having said that, he also left, but he was seen with a smile. The years passed. Izuku continued to copy gifts, but he did not give up his physical and mental training. The other thing he secretly did was to give a hand to those he thought deserved a second chance, saving and training Toga Himiko, Toya Todoroki, and Tenko Shigaraki. Currently, we see 5 people eating in a house. The happiest in that house was Inko because her baby was never good at making friends, and now he had 3 friends. Flashback. 8-year-old Izuku went to the most dangerous part of Japan, and his goal is to give a better life to 3 people. He knew where these people were. Izuku walked until he came to an alley, and in the dumpster he saw a white-haired boy who looked malnourished and was eating garbage. "Tell me, boy, what are you doing in this place?" Toya looked at a green-haired boy but did not care and continued eating. "You want a home?" He didn't answer. "You want to be stronger?" He did not answer. "You want to be stronger than your father?" He did not get an answer. "Do you want to see your mother?" Toya gets angry and picks up something from the trash and throws it at him. Izuku with his telekinesis sent the garbage somewhere else. Toya yells at him, "Get out of here, kid. This place is not for you." Izuku approached and held out his hand. "Take my hand and I will change your destiny. If you shake my hand, I swear your life will improve." Toya, with some hesitation, shook Izuku's hand. Izuku, for his part, glowed with a light blue color, and an aura of the same color covered Toya, healing all his burns. Toya looked at his hands and touched his face. He speaks in amazement. You healed me." Izuku let out a light laugh and brushed a hair out of his scalp. "Swear loyalty to me and I'll make sure you never suffer for your own quirk." Toya, still surprised, nodded her head. Izuku, still holding a hair in his hand, let out a faint chuckle, and his hair started to disappear into green particles, and those particles stuck to Toya. "Izuku is her mind. UFF, that was harder. I must say New Order's gift is powerful. Now I have the power to help others." Toya asks, curiously, "What were those lights?" "Haha, why don't you check it out? Use your gift." Toya, somewhat hesitant, used her gift and to her surprise received no injuries. He couldn't help crying. Toya ran to Izuku and gave him a hug. Izuku also saved Himiko from her abusive family and gave her a self-control power to control her bloodlust. He also went after Tenko and stopped her from killing her family and gave her a quirk to deactivate and activate her own quirk. He offered the 3 of them a home to train them. The only one who did not accept was Tenko, who continued to live with his family, although he did accept the training. Since then, Izuku lives with his mother together with his companions Himiko and Toya. End of flashback. For young people were going to O because they all wanted to be heroes. Himiko Toga wanted to be a hero so she could help all the gifted people who were considered villains. Toya wanted to be a real hero and not like her father. Her other goal was to get her mother out of the hospital. Tenko Shimura wanted to be a hero in honor of his grandmother Nana Shimura. Although Nana abandoned his father, he eventually realized that he just wanted to keep them safe. And he also read a letter that Nana left him. The letter conveyed his own grandmother's grief that she had no choice but to abandon him. Izuku wanted to be a hero. He owed it to his mother. He would create a world where his mother was happy. A world where everyone would be happy. Asterisk the 4 strongest. Theory Part 4. Izuku and his group of friends were heading straight for the O. Out of the corner of his eye, Izuku noticed that far behind them was a young blonde-haired woman. Izuku recognized her because she was Melissa's shield if he didn't misremember the kidnapping on his world. This time he was going to do the right thing and quite possibly gain an ally for his future plans. Izuku looked at his friends and spoke. "Guys, you can come to the front. I have other business to attend to." They all nodded. Although Toga pouted, but in the end he nodded as well. Izuku turned around and could see how Melissa had tripped and was about to fall to the ground. Izuku mentally spoke. Speed quirk. Muscle enhancement, high reflexes. With a burst of speed, Izuku ran towards Melissa. Izuku watched everything in slow motion. He could see how Melissa had her eyes closed. He could see how a chestnut wanted to catch her but couldn't catch her. Like a meteor, Izuku left a small trail of destruction. But he was able to catch Melissa before the impact. Melissa had her eyes closed. She was expecting an impact with the ground. But what she felt was someone hugging her. She still had her eyes closed until... "Melissa, are you okay?" A call towards her that denoted her concern made her open her eyes. She could only say something, "How handsome." Processing what he said, his face turned red, and he covered his mouth. She closed her eyes. Well, she expected to be seen as strange and pouty, for as she grew older, society treated her as if she was worth less for being quirkles. She felt her head being stroked, and for a second she remembered the caresses her mother used to give her when she was little. Unconsciously she began to cry. Faced with this situation, Izuku didn't know what to do anymore. He didn't know why he was crying until he could see himself reflected in her. Maybe in this new life he didn't suffer the bullying and abuse from others for having a quirk. But seeing Melissa crying made him remember his childhood in his original world. And every time she cried, no one comforted her. Only one person was the one who comforted her on the days when she could no longer bear the pain. The world gave her, and that was her mother. She did the only thing her mother did. She carefully approached Melissa and gave her a hug that conveyed protection. She repeated her mother's words, "Don't worry, little one, I will always be by your side." Melissa relaxed when she heard that, and emitted a reassuring sigh. She was now comfortable on Izuku's chest and was nowhere near falling asleep. Izuku, with a bit of teasing, said, "I know I'm sexy, but if you want to be a heroine, we should go to Yua." Melissa's eyes widened in surprise, and she turned red as she realized the situation. But processing the last thing she said made her sad. Melissa whispers back, "Never mind, I don't think she's a hero. Everyone doesn't think she can be one." Izuku got angry because he remembered how everyone in his old life told him that his dream was useless, or rather that he was the useless one. Izuku grabbed his face and made him look at him. He gave her a big smile. "I believe in you, Melissa. It doesn't matter if you don't have a quirk. I believe you would be a great heroine with or without quirk." Those words touched Melissa, and even with tears she gave him a radiant smile full of hope. They both resumed their walk, and Izuku looked at Melissa and asked her a question. "Melissa, if you had a gift, what would you use it for?" She didn't even think about it and answered, "I would do good and help everyone," with a big smile. She remembered her Uncle All Might and was saddened because 9 months ago he told her that she couldn't be a heroine without quirk. Remembering that, she clenched her fist annoyingly. Izuku stopped and Melissa copied his actions. "What's wrong, Izuku?" Melissa asked somewhat doubtfully. "Tell me, Melissa, would you be loyal to me if I gave you a quirk?" Melissa thought it was a joke. But seeing Izuku's serious face, she reflected on her words. She nodded her head, but said, "I'll follow you as long as your ideals are the right ones." Izuku gave her a smile. "Good answer, Melly." That affectionate appellation made Melissa blush. Izuku pulled out 2 hairs and spoke. "I'll give you the power you would have had but by bad luck didn't get." Izuku blew one of the hairs and it turned into particles that entered Melissa's body. Melissa felt that something inside her had changed and asked, "What quirk did you give me?" "The power to control any metal. That's the power I gave you. That's the power that best suits you, and it's probably the gift you would have had if you had been born." From the excitement, Melissa couldn't help but scream with happiness. And then she realized that she had another hair and asked him, "And what does the other hair do?" Izuku told her, "Before I tell you, I will have to explain a truth that will possibly make you hate your Uncle All Might." Melissa remained silent and proceeded to listen to the story of Ofa and Afo. And it tore her up knowing that your uncle didn't trust her and prevented her from her dream end. She felt worse knowing that the current owner of Ofa was a jerk. Melissa couldn't stop crying. But she was also angry because he couldn't give it to me. He knew I wanted to be a hero more than anything. She wiped away her tears and could see Midoriya's hair glowing multicolored. Izuku speaks to him seriously. This is a copy of the One for All. Unfortunately, he is a quirk with a will and they didn't let him copy the whole gift. Luckily, 3 predecessors did let him copy the One for All and its quirks, Nana Shimura, Hikage Shinomori, and Daigoro Banjo. This means that apart from OFA's strength, you will be able to unlock the quirks of those predecessors, the Float quirk, the Danger Detector quirk, and the Black Whip quirk. Hearing all this, Melissa was speechless, but she was able to formulate her question, why? All my life I thought I was useless because you would give me such power. You are not afraid that I will rebel against you and become a danger to everyone. Izuku only replied, because I believe in you. I don't just want you to be the #1 hero. I want you to be the hope of the whole world. I want you to be by my side, and if I ever stray from my path, you'll be the only one who can stop. Izuku blew her hair and it turned into multicolored particles and they entered Melissa. Listen to me, Melissa? For the moment, you will only use the gift of controlling metals. On the way, I will explain you the basics. Later on, I will train you to improve your control, and I will also train you to control OFA. They continued talking, but Melissa asked a question. Tell me, Izu, you are hiding something else from me, right? If you want me to be loyal to you, I want you to tell me everything. Izuku gave a sigh and didn't want to talk anymore, so he would simply use a gift to show his memories. Izuku grabbed her shoulder and pulled her towards him. Melissa didn't know what she was doing until Izuku kissed her unexpectedly. Melissa was surprised at first, but then she kissed him back. After all, that boy had given her hope and she would give it back to him. Even if she had to give her whole being and her heart, Melissa could observe another Izuku, a lonely and weak Izuku, one who was abused and humiliated. She was surprised because that Izuku didn't have a gift. She saw how All Might rejected her dreams, how society turned its back on him, and how he became a villain. After another while, the kiss ended and Melissa was crying. She saw how Izuku was looking at her with a guilty face. She grabbed his cheek and gave him a big smile. Don't worry, Izu. In this world you are not alone. This time I will be by your side and together we will make this world a better place. Izuku grabbed her waist and pulled her into an embrace. In a light whisper he spoke to her. Thank you, Melly. After that they prepared to go to the O. They met with Toga, Tenko, and Toya. Izuku introduced Melissa as his new friend and she got along well with everyone. A while later, the written test began where Melissa and Izuku were the ones who stood out the most. In the physical tests, everyone was separated except Izuku and Melissa, who were in the same place. Present Mick through the microphone speaks with enthusiasm. Hello, future heroes, it's time to show your skills already begin. Saying this, Izuku flew with his telekinesis and Melissa ran away. She had previously trained her body and was in good physical condition. Izuku watched the robots and all she had to do was stretch her hands out and clench them into a fist. The robots were compressed and destroyed. With his telekinesis, he made 2 metal spears with parts of the robots and threw them to Melissa. This will help you, Melly. Now I remind you that you have the power and all the metal will follow your will. When he finished saying that, he flew away to continue destroying more robots. Melissa, for her part, also went to destroy. She, at the moment, with her physical abilities and the spear she used to pierce the robots, was making several points. Help. It was the scream of a woman. Melissa saw how a woman with horns was cornered by 7 robots. Melissa went to help her and with a great leap she broke through one of the robots. She was outnumbered and had no choice. She pointed with both hands in the direction of the robots, and he began to slowly close his hands as the robots were compressed by an invisible force. When she closed her hands, the robots were rendered useless. Melissa was gasping for breath. She had exceeded her limits. She began to see in a blur. She felt the ground start to rumble, and before she fainted, she saw the girl she saved coming towards her, and her face was full of concern. Melissa gave her a smile. Calm down. It's all right. Well, I'm here. When she finished saying that, she fainted. On the other hand, The rumbling was caused by the robot Zero Dot and stopped by Izuku, although it was just a coincidence because Izuku was lying down doing nothing, because he already had a lot of stitches since the Zero Dot was making a lot of noise. He simply destroyed it without realizing that he had saved 2 girls. Future couples and the truth to Inko Midoriya Theory Part 5. Izuku and his friends passed the O exam and had several days off. Izuku decided to spend time with Melissa, Mina, Jiro, and Yui Kadai. Izuku was training them because in the future he wanted to get a group of heroes who were not only trustworthy but also strong. That's why Izuku used his telekinesis to make the girls' bodies heavier as they did various exercises for them to gain strength. After a few hours, Izuku stopped the workout, ready girls that would be all. Izuku stopped his quirk and the girls fell on the ground tired. Mina panting from exhaustion. How mean you are, Izu. The only thing you call me for is to study or train. And I thought she was a date. She was pouting at the end. The other girls were repeating the word date in their heads because each of them felt something. For our protagonist, Jiro spoke shyly. What would you like, Jiro? Was Izuku's question. Jiro, with a blush on his cheek, I want a date with you. He shouted his answer, leaving everyone astonished. Melissa also spoke up. If they have a date, I want one too. Izuku gave a sigh and looked at Yui, who was restless and wanted to say something. Tell me, Yui. Do you also want to ask me out on a date? Yui waved her hand to come closer and Izuku obeyed. He brought his ear closer to her to listen to what Yui wanted to tell her. She didn't say anything, she just walked up and kissed him on the cheek, making Izuku blush and leaving the rest surprised and jealous. Yui had a cute smile. Izuku scratched his head and didn't know what to say. But seeing the determined face of her friends, she agreed well. I'll go on a date with you, but in return I want you to give everything you have to be the best. Students in the UA. The 4 women gave a shout of victory as they had their fists extended towards the sky. Izuku let out a sigh and thought to himself, I think I've gotten too soft. I think it's about time to be honest with my mother, and so time passed. Izuku, as he had promised, had dates with his girlfriends, and to his shame, they all said goodbye with a kiss on the lips. The most remarkable thing was that she had a conversation with her mother. When she saw Izuku's whole life, she was scared. She never thought society would treat him so badly for being a Quirkles. Then she hugged her son and they were like that for quite a while. With that done, Izuku felt at peace with himself, because he hated to keep a secret from his mother. And so the days went by. Izuku woke up late. He went downstairs. He yawned, and when he looked closely, he could see his mother surprised by him. Inko spoke nervously. Izu, why are you still here? Izuku with hesitation answers. What do you mean, Okazen? Inko with trembling hand pointed to the clock. Izu, it's 9 o'clock. Izuku still didn't understand and simply ignored her and went to serve himself breakfast. He noticed the absence of his friends. Izuku with a toast in his mouth speaks to her. Okazen, where is Tuya, Tenko, and Toga? Izu, how they? They? They are in the damn school where you should be too. His mother shouted so loud that Izuku fell to the ground in surprise. Then he looked at the hanging calendar that indicated the day school started. Then he looked at the clock. He had a twitch of the eyebrow, and through his mind flashed the smirk of a blonde. Stupid Toga, when I catch her you'll pay for it. He with his telekinesis. Quirk began to float, and in a blast of air he took off in the direction of the shit. Izuku cursed himself for being so careless. He flew through the skies at high speed and had his eyes closed to calm his nerves. Stoppy! A woman's scream alerted him, and when he opened his eyes, he opened them wide. He saw in slow motion how he was about to collide with the rabbit heroine Mirko, who, as luck would have it, was jumping across the rooftops at a great height and standing in his way. And to top it off, the heroine Ryukyu was flying behind her. A collision was imminent. Boom! It was the sound of impact. Now all 3 were falling. The impact stunned Izuku. Mirko had dislocated her arm and hurt some ribs, and the dragon heroine had hit her head, leaving her stunned enough not to fly. Izuku regained his composure and grabbed the heroines by the waist. Already on the ground, he received a direct kick in the chest that knocked him back a few steps. Izuku had 3 exits: leave the place and then deal with the problems, help them and heal them, and then go to his school. Finally, it was to use a mind control quirk and erase what happened in his mind. After analyzing it, he reached out his hand and paralyzed the body of both heroines. Ryukyu, still a bit dizzy, speaks to him. "Let us go, villain. Listen to him, because if you don't let go of me, I swear I'll kick your ass straight to Tartarus." Himself, said the heroine rabbit. Izuku sweated a drop Anim style and ignored the comments. He didn't have time, so he used the quickest method to heal himself. He approached a furious Mirko. "Sorry for this, but I don't have time." Izuku grabbed her cheeks and proceeded to kiss a dismayed Rumi, a glare-covered Rumi, curing her. He approached Ryukyu. She had small tears. "Please don't kiss me." Izuku could easily ignore his words, but she heeded him. He gently took her hand and gave her a kiss that lasted longer than Rumi's. And just like that, a light blue glow covered Ryukyu and healed her completely. Izuku stepped back and bowed slightly. "I have a secondary quirk to heal with a kiss. The fastest is on the lips, but the last thing I want to do is hurt you." Without further ado, he took to the sky, and Lefty, now Mirko, and Ryukyu could move freely, alone and calmer. Ryukyu was the first to speak. "I like it." That comment earned him a serious look from Rumi. "I hate it. Not only did he attack me, but he stole a kiss from me." She clenched her hands in fury and frustration. "He stole my first kiss." A tear came out of her. Ryuko hugged her and caressed her head. "Calm down. I know he didn't mean to hurt us, but that doesn't mean he won't pay for what he did to us, and even more for what he did to you." Ryuko knew her friend was tough and didn't like to be feminine like the others, but even she was waiting for the man to share her affection and love with. She saw a certificate on the floor and smiled as she read it. Mirko looked at it too and said hatefully, "Izuku Midoriya, recent you a student." Mirko broke away from the hug and left in the direction of the O. Ryuko also went after her. "Friend?" She knew she would do something crazy. Asterisk a single entry. Theory Part 6. Izuku was going full speed ahead. He could now see the O and breathed a sigh of relief. He was about to enter the O straight through the sky when all the alarms started to sound. "Alert! Alert! Alert! Unidentified intruder has entered illegally. Proceed to activate automatic weaponry." Oh shit. That's what Izuku thought out, seeing endless turrets and unable to process the situation. He had to use his gift to make a protective field with his telekinesis. He raised his hands and began to smash the turrets one by one. "Alert! Alert! Alert! A very dangerous hostile individual has entered." Repeat, a very dangerous hostile individual. "Don't fuck with me. I just came to study." Some robberies and several drones with machine guns appeared. At the U.S. students were scared because for almost 30 minutes explosions were heard and the ground was felt shaking. When everything calmed down, a large damaged sector was observed, and floating above the chaos was Izuku. His shirt was no longer there because it had been destroyed in the battle. Izuku gave a sigh. "Good thing I thought it would never end." Those were the thoughts until he sensed the danger behind him. When he turned his gaze, it was too late. Rumi had kicked him in the chest with such force that it sent Izuku to the ground, creating a big crater. So well was heard the crunching of Izuku's bones as the kick came with such force. Rumi landed on the ground with a big smile. Ryukyu landed next to her. "Tell me, Rumi, do you think you did the right thing?" Ryukyu continued speaking. "It seemed to me that boy got his punishment when all the O artillery attacked him." Rumi said nothing, and he started to hear some footsteps. Ryukyu put out his wings, and with a flutter the whole dust cloud dispersed. Revealing a badly wounded teenager, Rumi opened her eyes in horror. She looked at the boy whose chest had an ugly black color due to the kick, but with fear she could see how a piece of metal was embedded in his stomach. COF. Izuku stopped and looked at his hand while coughing up a large amount of blood. "I have the power to heal myself." Izuku spoke weakly. That information made them both happy, but it made Rumi happier. "Then heal yourself. If you don't do anything, you will die." I'm really sorry, my anger controlled me. She wanted to keep talking, but Izuku interrupted her. Forgive me, I didn't think about your feelings, cough. I will only heal if you can really forgive me. Izuku fell to the ground due to blood loss. Rumi quickly grabbed him and with tears nodded. I forgive you, but please, for the love of your heart, heal yourself. He had tears because he truly believed that such an injury would be impossible to heal. She felt someone caressing her cheeks. Your red eyes are really beautiful. Rumi hugged the dying body and sobbed, please I'll sniff, stop talking and heal. Izuku was about to use her healing gifts, but to his and Ryukyu's surprise, Rumi was kissing him, a soft kiss. And Rumi loved it, and if that boy lived, then she already knew who would be the man she would share her life with. Izuku's body lit up in a light blue that blinded the two heroines when Rumi could see. She saw how the boy was really healed and gave her a mischievous smile. Rumi smiled back. Today in the afternoon I will be waiting for you at the exit. Always when we have times I want us to have many dates. Izuku nodded, although he was still lying on the floor. He was lying on Rumi's lap. A somewhat flushed Ryukyu coughs for attention. I'd like to spend time with you too. Izuku gives her a smile in confirmation, but replies, I'll tell you right now so there's no confusion. I currently have several girls who also have feelings for me. It sounds pretentious, but I want to be with all of them, and believe me, I swear to love them and try especially to make them happy. Rumi and Ryukyu gave him a stern look, but then sighed. Well, as long as you are faithful and respect us, I will tolerate it, was Rumi's comment. TSH. I don't like the idea. I wish you were mine. But I'd rather have you and share you than not have you. Cough, cough. The three of them slowly turned around and saw the teachers and students of the UA. But specifically they saw the principal, who had an unfriendly smile. Nezu spoke calmly. Tell me, young Midoriya, how do you explain that over $15 million worth of damage was wasted? And even more because it entered through the skies in the first place and not through the entrance. Ozawa Shada with an angry voice, not to mention that you are 2 hours late. Izuku with a nervous voice replies, well, regarding the time, I overslept. And with the attack I really don't know what happened if I have my ID here. He put his hand in his pants pockets, but after a while he took it out, but he had a serious look that made more than one shudder. I lost it, Jedge. Then he made a sheepish face. They all smacked each other on the forehead. Then Izuku made a thoughtful face, and without anyone noticing he mentally spoke to Nezu. Don't worry about the money. My power has many uses, and even if it is unethical, I will give you money based on valuable minerals. Don't worry, they won't be stolen. Nezu nodded his head. Nezu gave 2 claps. Please everyone to work and you students to your classrooms. Izuku relaxed as he didn't get into so much trouble. Nezu looked at him with a smile. By the way, young Izuku, as a punishment you will be in the general course and you will be accepted into the hero course. Only if you win this year's sports festival. Asterisk the strongest versus the strongest villain. Theory Part 7. Izuku was super bored. There was still some time left for the sports festival, and it had been boring weeks of classes. The only thing that made him happy were the dates with his friends that, although he didn't accept it openly, he was starting to fall in love. Also, in his free time, he took the opportunity to train Melissa with her to quirks, Metal Control, and Ofa. Her ability with the Metal Control quirk has improved, and Ofa only controls 7%. Izuku was at that moment in his classes receiving English lessons from Professor Prezentnik. He let out a long sigh and leaned back in his seat. He closed one eye, and with a quirk to see through animal eyes, he could watch as the 1A and 1B students entered the USJ, or known as the Unexpected Events Simulation Unit. He was about to stop watching until the villains appeared. To his horror, instead of Shigaraki, AFO himself appeared. Izuku gulped because that AFO was not only healed, he was now in his strongest state. He had rejuvenated. Izuku quickly got up from his seat and started levitating with the telekinesis quirk. He made a big hole in the wall. His teacher was going to scold him. Izuku looked at his teacher and had an extremely worried expression. Sensei, tell All Might that his nemesis has returned and to hurry to the USJ. With nothing more to say. He was flying, and at that speed it was going to take 10 minutes. POV USJ. Everyone was scared. Both Class 1A and 1B went to train at the SJU, but everything changed when the villains attacked. 13. Aizawa Shada and Vlad King went to battle. AFO with a big smile, come on Kurogiri, get them out of my sight. In an instant, a black mist covered the heroes and sent him to the outskirts of Japan. Aizawa Shada furious. Mirda. The students, with AFO he was laughing. He held out his hands. Attack, kill, and destroy the pride of Yua. The number of villains was uncountable at a glance, and they were about 2,000 villains. The students lost hope. Bakugo was shaking. He clenched his fists and orange rays came out of his body. Ararg, he gave a war cry and jumped towards the villains. He extended his two hands forward and created the biggest explosion that covered the 2,000 villains. Bakugo had an arrogant smile. They're trash. No one is stronger than you. TSK. He looked at his hands and they were purple from the damage done. All the students sighed in relief. But out of nowhere, large metal spikes pierced Bakugo's palms and knees. Everyone was horrified. Hee. Gee. Ha 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 ha, it's magnificent, so you are the successor of All Might? Argag. Bastard. This won't stop me. 3 pieces of metal were heading towards Bakugo to pierce his shoulders, and the last one was about to pierce his chest. But out of nowhere it was stopped. HMP. How funny, because my attack stopped. Then a blonde-haired woman was observed standing in front of her companions. She had her hand outstretched and then pointed at AFO. The metal spike was aimed at AFO, who simply moved her hand to the side and the attack was deflected. Jedge. How interesting. Melissa Shield, one of the few Quirkles who magically manifested a Dawn. She put on a serious look. Tell me who gave you that power. Melissa said nothing. I see, that's the way things are going to be. He with an air cannon dispersed the dust mist from the Katsuki explosion to show that the 2,000 was still intact. Bakugo incredulous. How is it possible? I have put all my power in my explosion. Afo looked at his army and ordered them. What are you waiting for? Everyone attack. The army of villains began to approach, and they all became tense because of the situation in which they were. Melissa with commanding voice. Todoroki, please protect everyone. Momo, create something to communicate with Yo. Tuya, help me with ranged attacks. Tenko, if you see that danger is imminent and you no longer have a choice, use your gift out whatever happens. I will take responsibility. Then he looked at the rest of his class and the B class. And the rest of you protect each other, trusted in you. Melissa mentally, come on OFA. I need all the power you can give me. 5%, 15%, 35%, 45%. Her muscles swelled from the pressure Ofa was exerting on her. From a burst she flew in the direction of the army. A single blow from her provoked powerful gusts of wind. The fight was bloody and Melissa gave her all in the fight. Even when she was bleeding from her nose and eyes, she kept fighting. She received cuts, burns, blunt blows. She was even poisoned. There were so many quirks from the enemies that it was impossible not to take damage. After 10 minutes she was able to defeat 1,500 villains. She was exhausted. Her body was shaking. She had lost an eye due to an attack by a sword. She was also pierced in the abdomen by a diamond spear. But they were all surprised that she was still smiling despite everything. Her companions looked on helplessly. Several of them were preparing to fight. Inside Bakugo's Ofa, the bearers watched in admiration as the guy who partially copied the OFA handed it over to a worthy user. Nana and those who allowed the OFA to be copied were proud of their decision, but sad to see the end of a worthy heroine. AFO was about to give the signal to attack again, but Melissa had succumbed to her wounds and fell face up on the ground. Her smile faded and tears started to flow. I'm sorry, Izu. I wasn't strong enough. I wanted to spend more time with you. And I would have liked to go on more dates with you too. Kill her was AFO's order, and as the villains were about to approach an injured Melissa, the entrance of the SJU was destroyed and someone appeared. The students were relieved too. Think they were the heroes. but several were disappointed to see that it was a student, although their friends who knew him gulped in fear, for they had never seen him so angry. At great speed he disappeared and appeared next to Melissa. He carried her gently and gave her a beautiful smile. Rest Melly. He gave her a kiss on her forehead that began to heal her wounds, and she fell asleep with a peaceful smile. An idiot villain spoke. Judge, it looks like that young lady is not going to die. Once I kill you, I will enjoy her body until she begs to die. He licked his lip just thinking that. Izuku turned his face and looked at the idiot who spoke. With a dangerous gleam in his eyes, he made the guy's limbs swell. Agrar was the guy's scream. Until his limbs exploded, everyone was shocked. Izuku softened his gaze and looked at Melissa. She disappeared and appeared in front of Minna. Please, Minna, take care of her. He nodded and carried her in his arms. Minna, somewhat worried, speaks to him. Please, Izu, don't kill them. He didn't answer and turned around before disappearing. He was stopped by her friends. He saw the worried look and nodded his head. After that he disappeared and appeared in front of the 499 who were standing. A green aura appeared and said, "Garbage on the ground." He raised his hand and brought it down sharply. Everyone fell to the ground. Izuku was still not happy. His hand closed into a fist and everyone's legs were shattered and useless forever. None of them screamed from the pain because they saw Izuku's face of pure anger and preferred to suffer in silence. Izuku looked up and looked at Afo. Afo proceeded to speak. Izuku Midoriya, son of In, Ko Midoriya, born with the supreme quirk of telekinesis. Before I kill you, I will get your quirk. Izuku looked at him and gave a slight smile because he now possessed the three strongest quirks, Afo, Ofa, and New Order. Afo disappeared and was in front of Izuku. He reached out his hand to snatch Izuku's gift. But Izuku tilted his head and with a right hook sent Afo flying 100 meters. Izuku waited for nothing and levitated all kinds of structures and sent them crashing into Afo. A silhouette emerged from the destruction. Afo was badly injured, but he healed instantly. You really think you can beat me? You possess one quirk, I possess hundreds, I am absolute evil. Soy Afo? He lunged and with his arm modified with quirk power-ups hit Izuku, who covered himself with his arms and was dragged for 10 meters. Izuku was going to taunt but took a punch to the face that slammed him to the ground. Izuku was distanced and his nose was bleeding. He didn't heal as Afo might suspect. He had more than one quirk. And for the moment that's what Izuku wanted. Izuku extended his two hands and sent Afo flying into the sky. Afo pulled himself together and gave a smirk of superiority. Hahaha, that's all. Izuku gave an arrogant smile and spoke. Tell me, Afo, could someone like you resist a meteorite? He raised his hand and lowered it down, and to everyone's surprise a giant meteorite shattered the top of the UJS and fell on Afo. Afo wanted to dodge the attack, but his body did not move. With his angry gaze, he looked at Izuku, who was glowing with a green aura. What happened to scare you? A little bit of damage, little Afo. Afo raised his hands as he could and waited for the attack. Agarhra with a scream from the effort and using several strength-enhancing quirks he was able to stop the meteorite. The students were amazed because that monster could stop something that gigantic. Izuku mockingly said, "Sorry, I said one. I meant two meteors." A second meteorite appeared and impacted with Afo. Boom. There was a loud explosion and there was no trace of Afo. Kurogiri had disappeared along with some villains. Izuku relaxed and walked towards the students. All the girls who had feelings for Izuku were going to run to hug him. But Izuku opened his eyes in surprise. Bwog. He vomited a large amount of blood. Everyone froze in fear when they saw an extremely injured Afo, who had pierced Izuku with a fist and had traces of a purple liquid on his hand, which also had his hands filled with Izuku's blood copy. Oh. Ha 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 ha, even if your wounds heal, nothing will save you from your death. Ha 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 ha, well now in your body is a powerful poison and quirk nullifier. Goodbye. He withdrew his hand and left in a portal. The girls who had feelings for Izuku froze in pure fear. Tenko and Tuya rushed over and cauterized his wound. Boom. The walls of the main gate opened and the heroes' eyes calmed down to see most of their students. unharmed, but they were shocked to see the sheer number of villains. Two heroines at full speed approached their man and saw that he was bleeding profusely. "How is he?" they both asked. Tenko gave a sigh. He fought and defeated everyone, or at least defeated the ones that were left as. Melissa had also defeated many villains. Izuku even defeated the boss, who was extremely powerful. But in the end he got careless, and before he left, the boss pierced Izuku in the stomach and apparently poisoned him. All Might approached his successor. "Tell me, young Bakugo, I see you hurt. You defeated the majority." Bakugo had been treated and his wounds were closed out. He was pale, but conscious. Sky didn't do anything. The one who did it all was the oxygenated blonde and the useless general class. He averted his gaze in pure rage because he felt completely useless. All Might was surprised. He cautiously looked at his niece and suspected she was a spy for the villains, because he knew she didn't have any quirk. A moment of weakness and sincerity. Theory Part 8. Izuku, still unconscious, could hear the ambulance sirens and could hear the worried voices of his friends and the crying of the girls he was beginning to love. After that he stopped hearing things because everything went black. It had been 2 weeks that Izuku was unconscious. Every day he was visited by his friends and especially by his mother. When Kyokujiro visited him, she would sing him a soft song. Every time Mina came, she had a sad look on her face, and with a forced smile she would tell him about the things that happened at the AU. Melissa would arrive quietly every day and would only come over to stroke his head, and at the end, she would cry a little but would always leave with a look of determination. Rumi would visit him early in the mornings because they didn't want her to be seen collapsing in a sea of tears. She loved that boy very much because he always made time for her and had dates that were lovely. Ryukyu would visit him in the evenings and she would always bring him flowers, and before leaving, she would give him a soft kiss on Izuku's forehead. Surprisingly, Ibara Shiozaki and Itsuka Kendo also visited him. When the other girls asked them the reason for their visit, they both replied, "He is my hero. He protected us in the O entrance exam." Izuku woke up. He was very pale. He looked at the clock and realized it was 6 o'clock in the morning. He took off the wires that were supplying him with vitamins. He stood up and stretched. He looked at his hand and clenched his fist. "Shit, I feel too weak." He opened the window and set out to escape from the hospital a few minutes earlier. A rabbit heroine was seen with dark circles under her eyes. She opened the door where her boyfriend was unconscious. Her eyes widened in surprise because she saw how her partner was about to escape from the hospital before leaving. Izuku heard sobbing and turned around to be surprised to see Rumi in tears. "Rumi, are you okay?" he asked worriedly. Rumi wiped away her tears and looked angrily at Izuku. "Fool." She took a step forward. "You have no idea what I've been through." Took another step. "You don't know how much my chest hurt." He took another step. But she stopped and tears came to her eyes. I couldn't live if I had lost you." She fell to her knees and began to cry harder. Izuku, putting aside his surprise, came closer and hugged her. Izuku gently caressed her ears. With love, Izuku speaks to her. "Don't worry, my little Luna, you will never lose me." Izuku gave her a kiss on her forehead. "I'm sorry. I became arrogant and too confident, and because of me, you and possibly all the others are suffering because of me." Rumi gave a big smile and hugged him tightly. Trust me, the others will surely beat you." Then she pouted, "And you never said they had 2 more pretty girls besides the ones I already know." Izuku looked at her confused. "What are you talking about?" Then she took out her cell phone and showed him a picture, and he watched as 2 girls he didn't know were keeping him company while he was still unconscious. Izuku, even more confused, asks, Rumi, who are they?" Rumi explains that they were saved by Izuku and that he protected them from the gigantic robot of 0 points. After that, Izuku confesses that he was there by chance and that he never saw them. After that, they were silent until... Rumi laughs out loud and then wipes her tears a little bit. She shakes her head. Izu. You are quite a boa, but I advise you to clear things up with them, because it seems they have developed feelings for you." Izuku and Rumi continued talking, and by Rumi's order, Izuku was to rest. They continued like this until his mother and the other girls arrived, and so did Rumi. They cried for joy and then scolded him for his imprudence. Then Ibara Shiozaki and Itsuka Kendo also arrived. Izuku came clean and saddened both of them. The other girls and their mother came out of the room. Ibara had tears and spoke. Gee, I understand. I misunderstood everything. Anyway, who would want to date a nun? Kendo was also sad but gave a forced smile. I apologize, but I really thought someone so awesome had taken an interest in me. The two were about to leave, but Izuku grabbed their hands. She gave a sigh. Listen, I'm really sorry. Then he looked at Ibara. Listen, Shiozaki, you're really beautiful, and from what I heard from Yui, you're a good person, and being religious doesn't stop me from liking you. Then she looked at Kendo. If they are in the hero class, it means they are amazing, and it would be an honor to get to know them better. She pulled them and hugged them both. If it's okay with you, I'd like to form a special bond with you. Ibara and Kendo smiled and returned the hug, and both rested their heads on Izuku's shoulder. They spent a while like that until they said goodbye with a beautiful smile. When Izuku was left alone, he started coughing. He looked at his hand and saw blood. Stamafo you put in my body. He slept until the next day and went back to Yua, acted normal. He got his classes, spent time with his friends, and spent time with the girls. Asked Rumi and Ryukyu to train the girls, as he was still tired. Several days went by like this, and there was one day left for the sports festival. He was now training Melissa. They were fighting and seemed to be evenly matched. Melissa had control of 30% OFA. Melissa delivered a strong punch to his stomach and pushed Izuku 3 meters away. She was about to attack again, but stopped and saw that Izuku was panting from exhaustion. Izu, are you all right? You look tired. Izuku took a deep breath and calmed his breathing. Don't worry, Meli-chan. He gave her a big smile. He got into a fighting stance, and Melissa copied the same action before launching the attack. Izuku began to cough sharply. COFC of dot COF dot COFC of dot COFC of. Melissa got worried and held him because Izuku was about to fall. Izuku looked at his hand and saw blood that had purple spots. Melissa had tears coming out of her eyes. From when? Izuku knew what she was referring to and answered, "This started since I woke up." Melissa looked at him annoyed. "And when were you planning to tell me or the other girls?" He sighed. "I didn't want to worry them." Melissa gave him a little smack on the head and took out her cell phone. Izuku nervously asked her, Meli-chan, you wouldn't be able to do what I think you're going to do." 1 hour later, we see Izuku, who was in his room, and he was tied on a chair. He, with a nervous smile, was looking at all the girls who had a look that emanated a scary fury. Mirko very angry. "You little idiot. Why the hell didn't you say you were still affected by the AFO attack?" Everyone nodded their heads. "I don't know what they implanted in me, but AFO was meant to destroy my body. Every second that passes, I feel my cells dying and I feel very weak. It is a poison that degrades my body. But the worst thing is that I feel that my quirk does not work well." Izuku waited for someone to ask, and then it happened. "Hey, Izu, but how would your telekinesis help?" was Ibara's question. For the moment, the only ones who knew the whole truth about Izuku were Toga, Melissa, and Kathleen. Izuku spoke, new order, and knew the knots. The knots that had tied him were undone. Izuku was a little pale, but he walked up to the girls and hugged them all as he could. They were all surprised. They were going to say something, but images came to their minds. They saw an Izuku. But it was different. It was an Izuku without quirk. Someone who received bad treatment from everyone, and how all the pain led him to become a villain. Everyone was crying because they never thought the world would be so cruel to people without quirk. Izuku broke away from the embrace. "Whatever AFO has put on me has weakened me. My real quirk is copying quirks just by looking at them." Izuku started coughing. All the girls got worried. "The only thing keeping me alive is the healing quirks I have." But they barely work. Izuku lay down on her bed before closing her eyes. "See you girls tomorrow. I need to rest." The girls stayed for a while. Some of them cleaned the room, Jiro played a soft melody with his guitar, and some of them caressed Izuku's head before leaving. They were all surprised. Izuku spoke in a whisper, "I love you girls." With those simple words, they all left with a big smile because until now Izuku had never said he loved them, but now they knew he felt love for them. Asterisk Sports Festival, Theory Part 9. We found ourselves in a stadium full of people. Classes 1A and 1B were introduced to the applause of the crowd. Then the other classes were introduced. Introducing Mick with excitement shouted, "Before we start, we will hear the words of the strongest 1A, Melissa Shield." Melissa took the stage and grabbed the microphone. "For many years I thought my dream of being a heroine was impossible. Everyone turned their back on me. My only support was my father, but in my time of greatest need, the person who helped me become who I am came along." Melissa points her hand at someone. All eyes turned in the direction of the general class. "Izuku Midoriya, my teacher, my friend and my boyfriend." She gave him a smile. "I know you're not at your best and I'd like you to retire to rest, but I know you won't." She puts on a determined look. "Even in your state, I know you won't let me down, so let's get to the final. And when we get to the final, I will beat you and prove to you that you were right and that yo." She screams at the top of her lungs, "I will be the next number one." People started clapping with excitement, but there was someone who was angry. Katsuki in her mind, "Fucking bitch, I will destroy you. I have the power of All Might and no one is stronger than me. And when I defeat you, I will make you mine." The former users shook their heads in disappointment at the 9th user. Present Mick spoke with excitement. First obstacle course challenge. Heroine Midnight was seen with a whip striking the ground. Start. The students ran. Shoto tried to cover it all in ice, but his brother Tuya smiled at him as he immediately thawed it out. But they were both overtaken by a yellow blob. Melissa was going with a smile using OFA. It felt good to use that gift. With 35% control, she was faster than almost anyone. The other student keeping up with her was Katsuki with his explosions and orange beams coming out of his body. An annoyed Katsuki yells at her, "Give it up, nerd. You'll never be better than me." Melissa turned her head and stared at Katsuki. "I will defeat you, and I will defeat the power of All Might." Katsuki opened her eyes and got angry. "Damn, how do you know that? Maybe All Might was right, and you are a damn villain." Melissa stopped looking at him and clenched her fist. She no longer admired All Might because her dear uncle not only lied to her, but denied her dream, and just because she now had a gift he branded her a villain. She shed a tear because it hurt her that he thought so little of her. She used the 40% OFA percentage and began to move forward at great speed. He destroyed the robots that were on the track as well as overcoming the rest of the obstacles. She was almost there. Present Mick was excitedly narrating the whole race. But he realized that there was someone who had not even taken a step. But what is this? The student Izuku Midoriya hasn't even moved. How is it possible that the strongest student was trained by him? The public started making negative comments about Izuku. Izuku in his mind, New Order Wind Control, OFA 10%, Telekinesis 20%, Flight Quirk, Gravity Quirk to make my body lighter. Izuku was talking to himself in agitation. It took me 10 minutes to get ready. If I was healthy, I would have done it in 15 seconds. Everyone watched as Izuku levitated in the air and a green aura became present as well as seeing. How a blast of air surrounded Izuku. Melissa had already passed the last obstacle and was 5 meters away from the finish line. She was happy, but out of the corner of her eye she saw a flash of green flash past her, but felt a slight bump on her butt. She had already reached the finish line and saw Izuku lying on the ground breathing heavily, but he had a smile. I beat you, Melly-chan. Melissa had a forced smile and a nervous twitch on her eyebrow. Tell me you didn't hit me in the butt. Izuku looked away as she whistled. Melissa sighed, but sketched a smile. You're amazing, Izu. Even in a weakened state, you swept the competition. So time passed and everyone had arrived. Then there were more challenges. But now we are on the final journey. Midnight shook his hips as he lashed the ground with his whip. We are now in the final 1 versus 1 challenge. The participants will face each other, and in the end only one will end up being commemorated as the strongest of this festival. The fights continued, but Izuku's friends looked at Izuku with concern because at that time Izuku was pale and tired. The more he used his gift, the more the poison affected him. Present Mick announced excitedly, next match Shoto Todoroki and Izuku Midoriya. Who will win the boy colder than Antarctica or the telekinetic of the general course? Shoto proceeded to speak. Midoriya, you don't have to be smart to know that you never recovered from the US Jane event. I won't go easy on you. I know I've told you several times, but thank you for taking care of my brother. Thus began the fight. Large ice pillars were thrown at Izuku, which were deflected with his telekinesis. Then began a melee fight where Izuku had the upper hand. Izuku was about to deliver a forceful blow to Todoroki's face, but the latter wasted no time and froze Izuku and locked him inside a large block of ice. Todoroki, in an agitated state from exhaustion, looks at Midnight and speaks. Izuku can no longer continue. If the student Midoriya shows no signs of consciousness, he will be disqualified. I will count to 3. If he does not respond, he will be disqualified. 3, 2, -1. She was going to say 0, but Bakara, get up, this can't end like this. It was the scream of a Jiro Kyoka. Mina got up and also shouted, you can do it, Izuku-kun, you are the strongest. Yukidai stood up and took a deep breath. I believe in you. She shouted with all her strength. Toga also shouted, if you don't move I swear I'll bite your neck dry. Kendo shouts, you can do it, Izuku. Ibara also did the same and shouted, you can do it. Melissa repeats the same action, you can Izu. Mirko also observed this situation and didn't stay behind and also shouted, move and give me the reason that I chose the right man. Ryuko turned red, but still shouted, if you win I will reward you, Izuku-kun. They all synchronized and shouted, you can. You can. Izuku inside the ice floe gave a faint smile. He said to himself, her gomenasai, I showed them something pathetic, girls. After this I will make our relationship officially OFA 40%, telekinesis 50%. New order not to faint until the festival is over. Izuku opened her eyes and the ice floe began to break. With even more force all the ice was destroyed. Izuku flew through the skies and made an arrogant face. Todoroki, use all your power or I will defeat you. Shoto shouted at him angrily. I will never use my father's power. He created a big ice floe and threw it at Izuku. Izuku with an outstretched hand stopped the iceberg and broke it apart. You have made your choice, now you will feel the weight of your actions. Izuku lowered his hand and Shoto fell to the ground. What the fuck? I can't move. My body is so heavy. Erg, what have you done? Izuku didn't answer. Instead he made the pressure that kept Shoto on the ground increase. Shoto was beginning to lose consciousness. Izuku approached him and spoke, if you don't use your quirk in the future, you will cause your own death. Then I looked at him seriously. Or you can cause someone's death. Your power is yours and you are not your father. With that said, Shoto ended up fainting. The audience started to scream with excitement. Izuku grabbed Shoto and carried him to the infirmary. He lay down and relaxed for his next match. He received a visit from all the girls, and they gave him cuddles that made him smile a lot. After a while, Present Mix spoke with excitement. There were so many exciting fights. Now we are in the semi-final. On one side we have the human, Bankatsuki Bakugo, and on the other the strongest student Melissa Shield. Ha 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 ha, I will humiliate you and make you mine, you damn blonde. I was going to beat you, but now I will not only beat you, I will humiliate you and destroy your pride. Midnight whipped the ground. Start fighting. The first to attack was Katsuki. Die stupid. It was Katsuki's shout as he approached Melissa and then generated a tremendous explosion that raised a lot of dust. Ha 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 ha, you are useless. Katsuki was laughing like crazy, but from the dust curtain a hand came out to grab him from his face. Swallow this idiot. Melissa could be seen coming out of the smoke and slammed Katsuki against the ground, generating a big crater. Katsuki screamed in pain as his face was destroyed by the impact of the blow. Katsuki managed to push Melissa away with a blast. I'll show you my true power. Katsuki activated OFA to 10%. Orange rays were displayed. Haha, this power feels amazing. This power is worthy of me. Melissa frowned. She closed her eyes. OFA 45%, 50% number 60%. She opened her eyes and a ripple was generated that caused a tremor. Yellow lightning was present and was so aggressive that some lightning struck the ground. Katsuki's eyes were wide open, and he was shouting furiously, "It's impossible. You can't have that gift. Who gave you that power? Answer, you bastard." Katsuki lunged forward and shouted, "Detroit Smash." Katsuki used 100% OFA, destroying her arm in the process. Katsuki felt real fear because her strongest punch was parried by Melissa, who had her arm X'd. She was only dragged 1 meter from her place. Melissa wasted no time and delivered a side kick that shattered several ribs and threw Bakugo into the air, who avoided leaving the ring with a bang. He didn't have time to rest because Melissa stepped in front of him and received a kick to the jaw that sent him skyward. Melissa leaned and jumped, and in less than 1 second she was on top of Bakugo. "This one is for hitting on you." She punched him in the face. "This is for thinking I would be with you." She gave him another punch. "This is for thinking you're better than Izuku." She raised both arms in the shape of a hammer and brought them down sharply. Katsuki covered himself as best he could, but was sent to the ground at great speed. The impact destroyed much of the platform. Katsuki got up as best he could and gasped in exhaustion and pain. "Fuck you, you bitch in heat. I'm going to make you mine and you're going to enjoy it." That comment infuriated Melissa. She held out her hand, confusing everyone, especially Katsuki. Sometimes I overlook that the planet itself has several metals inside. She pointed at Katsuki and several metal chains bound Katsuki. "Let go, bitch. If you don't let go, I swear I'll kill you." Melissa made the gesture of cutting with scissors with her hand. That confused Katsuki until he saw how the audience started to mock him. "Shut up. Shut up, everyone. I'm your damn #1 future hero, and I'm not going to accept being made fun of." He looked angrily at everyone until he felt a cold breeze run through his body. Melissa, in a mocking tone, "You really thought that with your insignificance you could conquer me?" Melissa pointed her finger in the direction of Katsuki's crotch. The explosive boy lowered his gaze and became enraged and shouted with hatred, "How dare you! I will return this humiliation." Melissa, already fed up, approaches at high speed and kicks him in his virile organ. Her strength was so much that she pulled Katsuki off the platform and slammed him against the wall of the spectator box. All the people nearby recorded Katsuki and made fun of his situation. Midnight grabbed Melissa's hand and raised it proudly. Melissa is the winner and she is the strongest woman in the UA. The crowd started cheering for her, especially the women who were happy to see such a capable woman. Present Mech speaks into the microphone. "Take a break. The final fight will be in 30 minutes. Asterisk the strongest couple. Theory Part 10. The crowd screamed with excitement as the strongest students stood in front of each other. Midnight raised her whip and whipped it and shouted, "Begin." Melissa was the first to attack but was stopped by Izuku's telekinesis. Melissa's body was surrounded by yellow rays and disappeared from Izuku's sight. Izuku tilted her body and dodged a kick that was going for her head. Izuku tried to punch it, but it disappeared again. He had to jump and dodge a punch that destroyed part of the platform. Melissa had a smile of excitement. "I'll give it my all. I will be the winner." Izuku was about to say something, but a punch that smashed into her face sent her flying through the air. He pulled himself together and parried another fist. A melee ensued in which it was clear that Melissa had the upper hand. In a carelessness of Izuku, she received a strong punch in the chest. He coughed loudly and looked at his blood-stained hand. He felt that the blow had shattered a bone or two in his chest. The fight went on like that for 30 minutes. People only saw flashes because both fighters were going at high speed. Sometimes Izuku took advantage thanks to telekinesis, and again he was overpowered by Melissa's superior strength. Melissa is panting. He mentally told himself, come on, you can do it. OFA 60%. 70 not 85%. Melissa's muscles swelled and Izuku attacked again. He was already on his last legs. With Melissa's increased power now, Izuku could only defend himself. Izuku had delivered a kick that was with great power. Melissa ducked down and taking advantage of the position, she punched Izuku in the stomach. That punch shook the whole place and Izuku flew and with the use of his telekinesis avoided falling. Out of bounds, Izuku was already seeing blurry, watching in slow motion as a Melissa who was determined to win approached. Izuku mentally prepared himself. Gravity quirk and new order control over the air. Izuku had his hand outstretched and when Melissa was 1 meter away he shouted, Shinra Tensei. A strong wave hit Melissa who, without waiting for the attack, sent her flying out of bounds. Slowly she saw how she was about to fall. She closed her eyes resignedly and a sense of failure came over her. She just wanted to sleep. But her eyes widened in surprise when she heard the following. Unbelievable, ladies and gentlemen. This year's winner is Melissa Shield, the strongest woman in all of UA. Everyone erupted in cheers celebrating Melissa's victory. Melissa herself didn't take it all in until she realized she hadn't touched the ground. When she looked up, she noticed an Izuku who was smiling slightly. Congratulations, Meli-chan. You really are the strongest. I'm proud of you. Melissa's tears began to form. Well, her idiot boyfriend had come out and probably disqualified himself so he wouldn't hurt himself on the ground from the fall. Silly. He brought his hands close to Izuku's face and kissed him. But you are my fool. Then he looked at the other girls. He shook his head. I stand corrected. You are our fool. She broke away from Izuku's arms because he was carrying her princess style. Izuku was starting to lose awareness. Melissa had a look full of mischief. She carried Izuku in a quick princess-style move. Kia? All the women were screaming from how adorable and romantic those young men were. On the other hand, the men were looking pitiful face for Izuku's situation. Izuku looked at Melissa with a big smile. You have fun doing this to me. Huh? She whistled innocently and they went to the infirmary. And time passed, and so there were quiet times Izuku spent with his girlfriends as well as several confrontations with villains. POV 7 years later. After graduating, Izuku formed his group of elite heroes who had his trust. Himiko Toga, vampire heroine. Kyoka Jiro, Mina, Yui Kadai, Ibarashi Ozaki, Kendo. Toya and Shoto Todoroki, Tenko Shimura, Mirko Ryukyu, and finally Kathleen herself who moved to Japan. Thanks to the exploits of Izuku and his group, such as defeating the League of Villains as well as killing the biggest criminal and assassin known as AFO. The public supported Izuku's idea, which was to create an agency with authority to have control over the actions of the heroes. With that and the support of #1 heroine Melissa Shield and the support of America's #1 heroine, Kathleen Bate, Izuku took full control of Japan. He gave his mother a life of luxury. He also married all the girls who always supported him and, apart from his adopted daughter Eri, he had more children with his wives, surprisingly, in a short time. Izuku had 10 children by Rumi alone. Whenever the subject was mentioned to her, she always puffed out her chest full of pride and always responded, Very soon another one will come on the way. Izuku in total had 19 children and lived quietly. Leaving aside the fact that Japan was practically hers, not even the president could do anything. Not that it was necessary, because Izuku never had power go to his head and always acted for the good of the nation, of the people, and even more so of his loved ones. Since he always had his wives to keep him in line so he wouldn't do anything stupid. Izuku, you really are happy. End of story. Asterisk, thank you very much. We are already more than 700 subscribers on YouTube. Asterisk, you can support me by following me on Wattpad or subscribing to my YouTube channel. Asterisk, you can support me monetarily to my PayPal bunmei22@gmail.com. You don't need to do it. Just with your subscription on YouTube you are already supporting me enough. I'm thinking in the future to make Ben 10 story and Avatar: The Last Airbender.